Revved Up Sports Show with Bobby Chaffee.
We do have this nice little format that we try to follow every week. We don't usually follow it.
And Rodney Rodriguez.
Entertain me. Tell me something. I need to know something other than what I'm seeing.
Y'all ready? Here we go. Here's Bobby and Rodney.
It is a fun Monday as we get set to go. Hashtag Real Race Talk coming to you from Texas. Showtime, Bobby Chaffee, Rodney Rodriguez. After a busy weekend, they say racing is like slowing down around here, but it doesn't seem like it to me. I mean, we had races going on everywhere, and we'll break some of that down as we get rolling. But monumental show tonight. We get to talk to we're racing dudes. I mean, we get to talk 7:00 Central. The Godfather, Dave Moody, hits the airwaves of the Revved Up Sports Show. That's pretty badass.
How cool is that, man? We get to talk to the Godfather, Sirius XM host extraordinaire, MRN broadcaster extraordinaire, one of the most iconic voices in racing, despite the fact he probably is humble enough to where he thinks of Barney Hall being the iconic voice, which he's not wrong. Barney Hall is a great voice. Joe Moore and some of those other guys that were sitting in that seat. Alan Bestwick was there.
A lot of guys, man.
With MRN. So they've done the who's who right there.
Yeah, man. So many folks that have rolled through that, and what I love about MRN is that it really does give you. I would much rather myself, and just from the way that I was raised, and just the way that I like to call races, I would much rather listen to a race than actually watch it on TV or streaming, because it's it's just such a great picture that they paint. These guys do an amazing job.
Yeah, it's just like being there in person. Although sometimes the TV does have the advantage. I know there at Martinsville, there was so much stuff going on that even Dave was talking about it's hard to pick and choose which to talk about. Do you talk about the battle for the lead? Do you talk about the battle for that third and fourth spot over there? Because that determines who moves into the championship four and stuff like that. So I think that's the one advantage in a situation like that. But I'm like you, normally the way that these guys paint these pictures of what's going on the racetrack is just, it's uncanny. A lot of people will sync it up. Get to watch your MRN coverage or your PRN. Those guys actually all know each other, so it's not like there's bad blood between the PRN guys and the MRN guys.
No. We've talked to the PRN guys, here in Austin. I mean, it's a mutual respect that they have there, with one goal in mind, to make racing great and just deliver a great broadcast, and both of them, both outlets do. And I think that, it's really cool because this weekend, I mean, for me, with high school football, as we get done with the regular season, I got back to getting to do audio broadcasts. And for me, it was like a light switch comes on. With video, there's so many things that I mean, I'm a radio guy. I'm an auditory broadcaster. So when I'm calling races or when I'm calling a football game, I'm telling you things that I'm not used to you being able to see. Mm-hmm. And for me this past week, getting to talk about uniform colors and who's where, trips to the left, single receiver, short side. I mean, whatever it is. I mean, that's the cool part, and that's what MRN and these guys do a great job of doing, because they they paint that picture, like you said. And Moody, talk about it. I mean, this dude, he keeps it real. I mean, if there's something that he has, I like that he, we have never done a call-in show on this program.
Never.
And if we ever did, I'd want to do it like he does his show.
It's an OBS kind of thing. But he does add the talk in talk radio, right? I think that's part of the way that it works. But he doesn't let people fly off the rails. If they come up with a solution or call him with a question and try to do something else, then he's the first one to say, so what is, what is it? You've got a screen door in your submarine. I love that phrase that he uses sometimes. So it's the way that you gotta have the talk in talk radio. But it's some of those people that call, God bless him for being able to survive some of them people that call in over there.
And that's one day, maybe this year during the off season, we'll do an open phones thing. And Brusso, bell for you. Hook me up. I'm available. Have Mike will travel. So anyway, and by the way, congratulations to Cody Brusso. Her and Brooke. That is so awesome for them that they're gonna make it official. They're gonna make it official, and that's awesome.
Facebook official the other day, so it's serious now.
Well, I sent them a picture of my minister credentials. I'm like, not only have Mike will travel, I have minister credentials and will travel too.
That'd be a fun wedding.
That would be a fun wedding. That'd be a whole lot of fun. But good stuff right there with Cody and Brooke. Much congratulations. That's super cool. But before we get into the Godfather, we'll talk to him at 7 o'clock Central right here on the program. Big weekend out at I-37. Rusty Head, man, with that car that he won for $150, the factory stock. He wins that in a Super Bowl pot bet. And he just continues to roll on, and another big win. He wins at 37. I mean, how about my man Rusty Head?
It's great that he's winning with that car. And I think it took him a while to figure it out. I think once he finally got it figured out, because there is a lot of driving differences between the factory stock and the way that a sport mod will run. So he's had an opportunity to figure it out. I've seen him lose a couple of races there in that car. They're late. Especially up there at Cotton Bowl, but I think once you get it figured out, these cars are pretty fun to drive.
Yeah, it seems like it, and he's done really well. I mean, that's a good car that he's got going on right there. Joyce Shepard checking in. Sexy Joyce, come on out to Texana. I will see you in person if you're heading out to the Clash, and that's coming up, and that's going to be a $5,000 to win factory stock race coming up this weekend out there with Owen, and weather seems to be good. Everything's going to cooperate. I think that we're going to have one fantastic show there. I like the way the show's been trimmed down. I mean, I wish that the other classes could run, but when you have maybe 100 factory stock showing up, you have to trim that show down. And between that, the limited modifieds, and the IMCA modifieds, that right there is going to be a pretty fantastic program.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun race, and unfortunately, I'm going to miss it. Some people will be thankful for that. Other people maybe not so much, but it looks like I'm going to miss it. I've got prior commitments there that have been in place for quite some time, so unfortunately, not able to make it down to the Clash. I'll be supporting my school there with UTSA going in for basically the semifinal to determine who goes into the West Division championship game. So that's going to be a lot of fun there. So it will be. I'm sad to miss the race, but yet still at the same time happy for my road runners.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to give a big shout out as well. There at 37, Jared Barber wins in the Texas Dirt Track Racing Series or Texas Dirt Truck Series. Aaron Letty is your champion there, so a good season for them. And it seems like that's a series as well that the resurgence is there. I mean, they're really getting their feet on the ground and getting other trucks in there. I think that 2022 could be really good for them. So good night out there with the what do they call it? The redneck
stress release.
The stress relief. Yeah, stress relief. Yeah, that's a good way to do it right there. Good stuff at 37. 105 with a good night of racing as well. Code Red, Cody Tidwell, the winner in the modifieds. Corey Neal Jr. in the limited modifieds. Thomas Downey Jr. in the factory stocks. JT Garland is your winner in the street stocks. And it's, again, we're in the big show.
They're running late models too.
Oh, that's right.
At the Clash.
That's right.
I had to go back into. I didn't want to misspeak, but they are the STLMS cars, the late models and stuff that are. How big is that group getting now? They've combined with a bunch of other groups. That should be one hell of a show down there.
I'll tell you. And I did see there's a lot of conversation. I think one of the trending topics on Texas, when it comes to dirt track racing is I saw that some folks, when you get to tech and don't want to tear down, and I saw a lot of conversation about that, and that's a touchy topic right there where you talk about the purse that you're racing for. But then as we continue to discuss the costs of racing, it's like if you're spending a crap ton of money to get these cars out on the racetrack, I mean, they're talking about inspection holes for pistons, for rods, whatever the case may be. I know we tried that way back in the day, with back in street stock days, when it came to lightweight pistons and lightweight rods and all that. And, I don't know, but it seems like here we go again. That conversation's being had about guys not wanting to tear down and traveling all these distances for minimal purses. But, if you're going to spend a lot of money, I do think that you need to be prepared for the tech man to say, pull that motor, pull that pan. You got to be ready for that.
Especially with a big race, when you start talking in the $4, $5, $6, $10,000 to win races.
Absolutely.
You know that you're going to have to pull some stuff, some heavy duty stuff in tech. What is that? The King of the Hill? I mean, they basically give you back a bare chassis. You put your engine in a box when you win that race. So we talked to our man, Big Money Neil Kemp, has talked to us about how much that goes into that race. the after tech where they have the full notebook of stuff to tech. So we're not privy to the information that they're going to tech this weekend. I know that the biggest thing is that they're bringing in the professional motorsports people to do scoring and the race directing. I think that helps out a lot with Owen by being able to one less thing off his plate to do. So I think that's going to be a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of big races, Duel in the Desert, good show there. How about Stevie Whitaker, man, going up there representing? Just a great performance from him. He doesn't win the race, but it's really cool to see one of our guys get up there and with these big shows. And I saw a great XR video today when it comes talking about changes and everything, evolving. It's something we can talk to Moody about here in a little bit about, combining stuff up, whether it be NASCAR, dirt track racing, short track racing, whatever. But it is Ricky Thornton Jr. in the modifieds with the Duel in the Desert. In the stock cars, Zane DeVilbus. And our man in the super late models, old Bobby Pierce. I tell you that guy, man, what a joy to watch this dude race.
He's definitely got his moments, right? When he's on, he's on. Sometimes when he's off, both mentally and setup wise,
it's a lot.
It's a lot sometimes. But he, a friend of the show, he's been on here at least once or maybe twice over the course of the year. So he's, he did that charity race down there at L87 in the go karts that time. When they were running, so that's he's been around Texas and enjoyed some stuff, but it's it's that the XR stuff never ceases to amaze me in terms of the stuff that it does because
they got a lot of stuff happening, man.
They got a lot of stuff happening, and there was not a lot of people in the grandstands. They're making their money on that pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are, and that's one of the things that we see that happening. You can check in with whether it's Racing America or XR, Race on Texas, whatever. You don't have to be there. You can jump in and pay. When you think about it, because I was thinking about that, I was watching a late model race. I think it was on 51. And I was hesitating to pay to watch the race, and it was $19.95. I think this was a few months back, and I'm thinking, look, if I go to the track, I'm going to spend $15 maybe if it's regular admission. $15. I'm probably going to spend a lot of money at the beer stand. I'm probably going to want a hot dog, and seriously, that XR they're kind of onto something right here.
I think it works. Obviously, if it didn't work, they wouldn't keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked to who we talked to that's talking about the XR stuff that was on here that time a couple of weeks ago. Who the hell were we talking to that knew about that?
I don't even know what today is, dude.
I know.
I just know Dave Moody's coming on. That's about all I know.
Yeah, that's about all we had coming on.
Yeah.
But they were talking about the big picture of trying to get the XR stuff done, and they're working on it. I think they've got it back to where you know that you got to. There's a certain as an entrepreneur when you started your deal. There's a certain cost associated with doing the startup, right? You're not going to make
What'd you call
money. Entrepreneur.
Should I be insulted?
No.
Okay. No. Okay.
When you started your real estate magnet.
Oh.
Yeah, when you started that.
I didn't know if you were calling me a pile of dog crap or something.
Oh, no. That's what my degree's worth because it's an entrepreneurship degree. And I ended up being a social worker. So there's that.
But anyway, we digress. As you were saying, sorry.
That there's an initial cost that you have to have when you start a fresh business, and I think that those guys are well aware of it. And I'm sure there's going to be some losing ventures in the beginning, but as those subscriptions continue to roll in and those big events continue to go all over the country, it becomes habit. I for one tell you, I watch YouTube all the time on my smart TV because
too. Yeah.
Nothing else on, and I can watch anything from old races to reviews on recreational vehicles to all kind of different stuff. And so there's a lot of stuff. Speaking of YouTube, don't forget, if you're liking us here, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can hit like and subscribe. The more subscribers we have over there, the more we can grow the brand. So as we get a few new people in here to listen to The Godfather, don't forget, check out all the socials. You see all the different stuff behind us. The RevvedUpSportsShow.com.tv, Real Race Talk, RevvedUpRadio.com. So check out all the social media channels there to get the latest information about the Revved Up Sports Show. But kings of shameless self-promotion. But
lots of ways to get this stuff. Lots of ways, man.
Yeah, but I think that it's becoming more easily accessible, and it's different now. Even our friends over at Race on Texas, when they finally got their Roku app up and running, made it so much easier than having to just plug in the HDMI cable onto the TV.
Yeah.
So I've been able to watch a lot of races. I'll probably watch part of the Clash myself once I get back from the football game. So it'll be that the streaming's where it's at. I mean, it's definitely, you know, we promoters used to hate it. Now they see it as a useful tool. That
got to live by
it. The more people that watch it are the ones that decide they want to see it in person, just like they do with the Cup Series and stuff on regular TV.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Good stuff right there. And speaking of talking about big money races on dirt, I mean, we're weeks away from the Snowball and everything happening right there. I see Bruce Wright checking in. I mean, I know that these guys will be out there, racing with the showstopper Jake Wright, but. Yeah, you're out at New Smyrna this weekend for the Governor's Cup and Donnie Wilson Racing once again. We just see another great performance there as Sammy Smith wins that. Chandler Smith was really good, but he whatever happened, he fell to 13th. But it's Sammy Smith over Nassie, Jake Finch, and Eric Jones. How about Eric Jones coming back to the roots right there and getting back after it, man? What a great weekend that had to have been. They had rain delays and all this stuff there at New Smyrna, the night before. I thought Lucia was going to get him one there, but he comes just a little bit short with Brad May. But great weekend out at New Smyrna.
Yeah, great finish there with Luza. They're battling there for second and third with a couple of laps to go. I think he posted it up on his Facebook page. It's about 3.5 laps worth of racing, but damn, he did really good holding that line on the outside and making that work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. I mean, that was fantastic. I mean, I like that a lot. Of course, then you had the Battle of the Stars. You had a big event happening there, Josh Berry. And I mean, that's I mean, that's a guy, when you see him entered in a race like that, I mean, he's going to be the guy. But for Josh Berry, I mean, that kind of gives us all hope. It really does. I mean, because he's one of our guys. He's just just a guy. He's just one of us.
He really is. He's one of the racers able to work his way up through the ranks of racing. Started out with a street stock, moved up to a late model. Mm-hmm. Had exceptional success there in the late model stock car series up there in the Mid-Atlantic, and turned that into. I mean, the relationship with Dell Jr. helps.
Oh man, that never hurts. Yeah,
that opens up a lot of doors for you. But he's been able to prove. I mean, he won at Martinsville in the car. And where else did he win? Vegas. Mm-hmm. He won 1.5 miles somewhere in the one at Michael Linnett's number 1 car. So that. That's interesting to know that he's been able to fill in as a super sub. He's had some good runs in the truck series, running that Rackley Racing number 25. So it's been an interesting. It's been fun to watch. Mm-hmm. His progression through the ranks has been fun to watch, knowing that you're right. If the right break comes through when you work just hard, didn't have a lot of money behind him. Yeah. It's not like Junior was funding that out of his pocket.
A good connection. Yeah. I mean, that always helps. I mean, it's who you know. I mean, that's really the one thing that, speaking about your degree or whatever, I mean, that's one thing that you can learn just on your own. It's all about who you know. I mean, make those connections and make the most of them. And that's, something that he's a great example right there where, he and a bunch of other drivers, I mean, because it's hard to have the big pockets, and it's hard to have, the rich parents or whatever you want to call it. But he's done a really good job of getting himself in a situation and exposing the talent and the ability that he has. And I really do think that he's a great example, because we do talk about on the program all the time. And, it's like there's so many great racers around the country that will never get that golden opportunity. But, man, if you get this much of a chance, you got to pounce, and you got to pounce really fast.
And we've seen it with some younger guys. Obviously, like when Caden Honeycutt had that opportunity to race at the Derby last year with Donnie Wilson, he took full advantage of that. Damn near sat on the pole, ran in the top 5 almost the whole time. We saw it when he the first time he got into that Donnie Wilson stuff before the Derby, almost won that 75 lap main event out there. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for a little bit of contact with a lap car there with about 25 to go, he probably would have walked off and left him.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to the Clash. I mean, that is one thing that I want to talk about there with Owen. I think that this event has the possibility to exceed many others, and we a great finale there at Cotton Bowl with everything that those folks were doing there. But I think just with the way that they've built this thing and the ability for Owen and the group there to go out and find ways to pump in $5,000, for a factory stock race, we keep talking about factories, but I think that we're going to see a whole bunch of all the others as well. And I think this is like Owen. He was promoter of the year last year, didn't win it this year. We had the Poors on here last week and talked with them about all of that. But I mean, this is where Owen's going out with a bang for 2021.
To me, it's almost a little late in the year to do it, but obviously, what do I know? Obviously, I'm not the promoter of the year like Owen, but I think it hits at the right time. Obviously, you've got the Jerry Whitaker Memorial coming up in 2 weeks down there in Corpus, so it's not the latest one, but I think it just fits right. It is challenging to try to go against college football even in this state, but there's some diehard fans down there in Etna that really come through a lot, so it's fun to see that. That tradition continues. Obviously, it was more than as a monumental success last year.
Yeah.
The race was and the event was. So it's going to be good to see it again happening. And so nothing but good wishes there to Owen and the staff down there, because it's going to be. Mother Nature has not been kind to them this season. So it's good to see. I'm like you. I watched the weather forecast. Might be a tick hot in the afternoon. Might be a little cold at night. But all in all, I think the weather's going to cooperate enough where it shouldn't be considered an issue down there.
Mm-hmm. How about the wheelman? The wheelman's here. The high kick 99. I like that.
Is that the one where you get to kiss the donkey?
Kiss the donkey.
Kiss the donkey.
But I saw that our friend Jennifer Brinson, she posted the donkey. For some reason, the donkey couldn't show up, so they had to get a backup donkey. And then by the time that they were always done, or by the time that they were figuring points, something got all discombobulated. It wound up that Colin Allman wound up being the winner. But, high kick 99. I like that. I like that a lot.
I mean, how do you get what happened to the primary donkey? That'd be my question.
Know.
I mean, how do you have to get a backup donkey?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time.
It
wouldn't be the first time two jackasses showed up at a racetrack. Just listen to some of our old videos and commentary from the races back in the day.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but they did find a backup donkey and wound up. I think that here in Texas, if we were able to have, whether it be a big old pavement race, and by the way, speaking of pavement race, so Gina, we were planning to have Gina on the program tonight, but she wasn't able to, so we'll get her on, whether it be next week or the following week, and get a wrap up of 2021 and so forth and so on. But we should do your idea here. We should have a big ass race, whether it be dirt or pavement, and put them on the bucking bull, put them on the mechanical bull. Let them try to be Bud.
Yeah, well,
that'd be good.
Didn't work all that well in Pensacola during the rain out. It didn't work all that well on 6th Street on my birthday either. So I think you got to get one of those smaller ones, or get somebody that doesn't purposely try to throw you off within like 15 to 20 seconds.
I think that would be we could do like the Urban Cowboy 200 or some crap like that.
That'd be fun.
I think that'd be pretty good. I think that'd be pretty good.
What is the milk bowl kisses the cow, the high kick kisses the donkey? What are we having to kiss out here?
A lot of ass. It's about all we kiss around here. That's just kind of the thing that that happens around here. But yeah, I think that would be really good. I think that would be really good to do something like that. Like we said, just a great weekend of everything happening around here, and with stuff starting to trickle down. We're into the big race season, and I think that this really showcases. The nice thing is, like with the Clash this weekend, Bobby, you're going to have the big hitters coming in, and that's where we go back to the tech thing. I mean, I think that if you're going to go to the racetrack, you need to be prepared that they may tell you, okay, we're pulling the motor. And me personally,
it's a good possibility.
Yeah, me personally, I mean, I live, I don't know how far it is. It's a good ways from Texana. I don't think that I would want to haul my crap down there, and when they said to pull the engine, that I wouldn't want to pull it. I mean, I think that's kind of, I don't know. I saw somebody say that it wasn't very cost effective, but I mean, it's not very cost effective to go down there and not even make tow money.
Well, I mean, that's the reason. If you're going to run for the big purse, you're going to expect big tech. I mean, that we talked about it already.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big money equals big tech. It'd be crazy to try to give that away, because you got to have your integrity there with the actual inspection process. That's why the guys want to come down and actually race with you, because that's what they expect. I mean, you don't want to, you don't want the guy that's coming in from East Texas to come through there and win. the whole money because he's cheating up everything. Like you want the battle between some of the established stars, your Dalton Faulkners into the world, and trying to go against Colin Hodges and some of the local heroes down there. So that's what you want, and that's how you get it with an evil playing field, and that you get even.
Well,
even
it is evil.
I
mean, that's part of it.
Good tech.
Yeah. Yeah.
Evil.
Well,
good Lord.
And that's the thing where we caught a lot of grief in Houston when we did the first Texas Truck Challenge. When it was a matter of pulling everything that they had to pull. I mean, they're pulling all these different transmissions. I mean, they're doing all this stuff. And the fact was, I kept hearing, well, they don't do this at Five Flag Speedway. And it's like, well, but at Five Flag
Speedway. They do in the late models. They do in the super late models.
Right. At Five Flag Speedway, the trucks are secondary. They don't have time for that stuff there. I mean, they're worried about the Southern Super Series and the Alan Turner late models. I mean, that's what happens when you're premier. And you need to be prepared to do that. Maybe get yourself out of the gray area a little bit. I mean, I don't know. It's a touchy situation. And it's funny because I do see people complaining about purses, and I'm like, you're making a pretty good purse for what this class is supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, for a factory stock class, you're racing for $5,000 to win. That is a whole lot of money. Yeah. That's way too much. It's almost way too much money to race for when you're having a factory stock for that much money. But I think the one thing that we've realized, the one thing we've noticed over the years is that good tech has brought, and Chris Birmingham checks in on the Facebook page, like he said, better tech would bring in more racers, and it does. It pisses people off in the beginning because you get the guys, well, it's only a quarter of an inch off. Well, guess what? It's black and white when it's a quarter of an inch off, and if you're over the rules, even down there at Old Lady 7, Lawrence's little go-kart track, they say down there, they go in and say, hey, if you're overweight by a pound or underweight by a pound, you're still underweight by a pound, and it's going to be a disqualification.
Yeah, there was a night at Kyle years ago where we had the wheel thing that they used to run under the frame of the race car. Had to be 4 inches of clearance. I got out there, I won the race, and I had gotten into somebody, and the door caved in, and it pushed one bolt. It pushed one little bolt down, and Jack rolls the thing under, and it hit something, and I got disqualified. And yeah, it pissed me off, but.
But he's DQ'd Keith before, too, so it's nothing personal.
Yeah.
He DQ'd his own son before winning a race, so.
I still don't agree with that, but it was, I mean, it cost me a win. I mean, the rules are the rules. You roll that thing under 4 inches. If it hits anything, and that's the way it was written, if it hits anything.
What race was it down in Corpus where they tore up so much stuff they had to get body panels and body pieces to try to get the winner to get minimum weight in tech that time?
Yeah, I remember that.
Is that a TSRS race?
I think it was TSRS. Yeah.
Where they had to come through and they DQ'd so many people from being different. I mean, this was the third place car was just trash and was getting ready to get put in a dumpster with the body. And they said, no, go grab the body. And they put body panels and everything else on there to try to get it, to meet minimum weight so they didn't DQ somebody else.
Yeah, it was quite the mess right there. And I mean, that's part of the thing. I mean, the rules are written for that reason. I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, the rules are the rules. But anyway, we'll pursue that as we get through the clash and everything that's going to happen right there. But monumental night as we talk here on the Revved Up Sports Show. We are going to the Revved Up Sports Show hotline, and this is one of the guys. You hear the voice. You hear him in turn one with the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR, Sirius XM Speedway. I'm sure so many of you tune into that on Channel 90 each and every weekday. On the hotline, super excited. It is the Godfather, Mr. Dave Moody. Mr. Moody, how we doing, sir?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for taking the time after your program to check in with us. So Dave, have to ask you, 2021, what a season for NASCAR. Your thoughts? We have a guy that is trying to cross over, dirt and NASCAR. I mean, that's the way it's being perceived. Your thoughts on 2021 in the Cup Series?
Well, it was a phenomenal year to say the least. We started out the way we ended 2020 with no fans in the grandstands, ended up with jam-packed grandstands for the season finale in Phoenix. Sure was nice to have those people back. We had 3 or 4 of those races this year where just the old-time jam-packed vibe was in full flow. We had it at Road America, we had it with NASCAR's return to Nashville, and we certainly had it at Phoenix, and it was a lot of fun. But you mentioned Kyle Larson and the story that he authored this year. I think that he has kind of single-handedly raised the bar for the world of motorsports, because we've got dirt track fans that would not have been caught dead at a NASCAR race that are now watching NASCAR races. We have NASCAR fans that wouldn't have watched a dirt track race at gunpoint that are now watching because he's in those shows. And I think it has expanded the fan base for the sport dramatically.
It's great to see that. Is that the biggest divide, Dave? We're so long. I mean, you had Ron Capps on this afternoon, which is totally opposite of what people would think on the Sirius NASCAR channel. Isn't it great when all motorsports prospers? It's like the rising tide raises all boats, whether that be drag racing succeeding with new Camping World sponsorship or the Cup Series having a shakeup with the schedule and everybody seemed to like it. I mean, it's a good thing when all the racing series are prospering, right?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely so. And, motorsports has spent, in my opinion, far too long looking at the other guys who race on that surface. So the other guys that turn right and left instead of just left. We've spent decades fighting ourselves, the drag racing fans against the stock car fans, against the road racing fans, against the dirt, against the asphalt. What we really should have been fighting all these years is against baseball, football, basketball, and hockey. They're the real competition. Motorsports in general should be working together, and we're starting to see that now at long last.
Yeah, and it's much. I'm glad that it's finally happening. So Dave, why is that divide? I mean, I've been a NASCAR guy forever. I mean, I grew up at racetracks. I got to race. I'm a PA announcer. And now I do this. What is that divide for short track people that they just don't want to embrace NASCAR anymore?
I don't know what it is, and I guess to some degree it's human nature, because you love best what you love first, right? You never forget that first girlfriend that you had. And I guess I understand that. Nobody starts out as a race fan, or very few people start out at the Daytona 500. They start at some tiny little dirt track somewhere, dirt or asphalt, and that's what they fall in love with first, and they gravitate onto other things. I also think that, back in the day, you could, and where I grew up in the Northeast, you could latch on to, it was originally the NASCAR North Tour, then it turned into the Busch North Tour, then it turned to K&N East, then it turned to ARCA East. But my point is, back then, you could buy a Dick McCabe T-shirt or a Dave Dion hat or a Bobby Dragon hat and wear it for 30 years. In recent years, you'd buy the hat of the hot young thing on the tour, and 18 months later, he's gone because he's got a 3-year plan to be in Cup. Right. It's hard to build a fan base when nobody stays for more than 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Dave, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking to a mutual friend of yours, Phil Whipple, and we are finally asking him about the coverage that the Northeast racing's finally getting. Is it time for those guys to break out the wood and be happy that they're getting as good a coverage as they are for all over nationwide now?
Well, sure. I mean, everybody's happy to get noticed, right? I mean, everybody wants to be in the newspaper or on TV or on the radio. There's no doubt about it. It's harder than ever to make it to the top. It's always been hard. When I was a kid, these many decades ago, we had some tremendous racers in New England that never saw the light of day in a NASCAR Cup Series race and never really aspired to, because they knew that they never would. Right. It's still the same way. The problem is, back then it cost you $500,000 to run the full Cup season. Now it costs $30 million, and we're working on getting that fixed, but it's going to take a little time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dave, let's talk about your start there. In Vermont. I mean, at Thunder Road. I mean, you've done this the hard way, and like I said, Bobby and I we're PA guys. That's how we started out. But your mentor, and so excited that he is going to be, with the NASCAR award there, Ken Squire. Talk about that. You're coming up through the ranks to where you are now, and Ken Squire. Talk about those two things.
Well, I mean, you said I came up the hard way, and I guess in some ways I did, but I also came up the easy way, because I had Ken Squire teaching me everything I needed to know, knocking on doors when I needed doors knocked on, opening doors when I needed them opened. I was very fortunate. And I grew up at his little racetrack, Thunder Road, up in Vermont. And about the time, late 70s, early 80s, that he started getting really busy with CBS and couldn't be there to announce the races, he needed somebody to replace him.
Nice.
And for some reason or another, and I'm not entirely sure why, he picked me. And I don't know. I was writing a column for what was New England Speedway Scene, the racing weekly racing trade paper back then. And maybe he read what I wrote and said, okay, here's a kid with a workable vocabulary that seems to love the sport. More likely than that, though, he probably looked at me one day, standing there with my finger in my nose and said, there's a kid with time on his hands. Either way, it worked out with me. It worked out well for me. And he taught me half of what he knew and all of what I know. And when it came time for me to move on and move up, I guess, as you'd refer to it, he never held me back. It would have been very easy for him to keep me calling basketball games on his radio stations and hockey games and football games and announcing at his racetrack. I probably made him a couple of bucks over the years, but he never held me back, and he always encouraged me to go for the next big thing.
I love it.
Dave, Rodney and I, we talked about being PA announcers before, and we think that the announcer is one of the most important hires. But over the years, with this online demand and being able to watch stuff on streaming on the internet and different apps and stuff like that, has the role of a short track announcer changed to be where you now have to find that balance between talking to the fans in the stands versus talking to the people on the internet? Is that, am I overthinking that, or is that really the way that the role of the announcers is becoming now?
See, I think just the opposite. I really do. I think just the opposite. Nothing makes me more angry when I'm sitting in the grandstands at my local short track than, 30 seconds after the wreck to hear the announcer say, and as you can see on the Jumbotron replay. No, we don't have a Jumbotron, right? We're here in person. And we paid money to be here in person, and I don't want to hear the track announcer reminding me every 3 minutes of what I'm not seeing, So I think, and honestly, it goes the other way too. When I'm on Flow Racing or I'm on Dirt Vision or I'm on Speed 51 or whatever, I want to hear the track announcer doing what he does as a track announcer. Mm-hmm. I don't need a TV commentator. That's one of the first things that Squire taught me. He said, when you're on the PA at the racetrack, you're not a sportscaster. You're not a play-by-play guy. You're not a disc jockey. He said the closest thing to a racetrack PA announcer is the ringmaster at the circus. And your job is to convince those people. Everybody's seen an elephant in their life, right?
Yeah.
Your job is to convince those people that the elephant they're about to see is the biggest, grayest, longest trunk, biggest eared, most talented elephant in the history of the world, whether it's true or not. And he was exactly right about that. Exactly right.
Yeah. And back to Ken Squire. Dave, there are things that I do when I'm calling races, and I go back to, it's a jam session coming out. There are things that get ingrained that you hear this. Just talk about the brilliance of him. This is the guy when he got tabbed. And he was way before we ever knew about the 1979 Daytona 500 being, flag to flag. But just talk about the what he did for the sport. I think he is so important in making NASCAR mainstream.
Well, if you've ever watched a NASCAR race on television, you have Ken Squire to thank.
Yes, sir.
Because he single-handedly taught CBS Sports into broadcasting the Daytona 500 flag to flag. There had been a race or two broadcast prior to that, but they were on, regional sports networks in the South primarily, and didn't get a lot of audience. But Ken convinced CBS that if they did this and they did it right, there would be an audience. And then in vintage Squire fashion, he hit the jackpot, because on Daytona 500 day, everything east of the Mississippi was buried in 3 feet of snow. Nobody could leave their house. Back then there were 3 channels instead of 300. So millions of people that had never seen a stock car race in their life flipped to one of the only channels they had and said, hey, this is kind of cool. And now every auto race in the world is on TV somehow or another, and it's all because of him.
That's right. That's right.
Dave, let's talk about Barney Hall. Obviously, he's a special piece of motorsports history with the Squire Hall there at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Was he the right guy at the right time to make that transition from the South up to trying to get it where it is today? I mean, you guys still have a legacy at MRN that's going to be unparalleled forever. But as far as Barney Hall, he's the iconic voice that you listen to for some of these old classic stuff back in the day.
He absolutely was, and I say this all the time to anybody that asks, and a lot of people that don't. I'm the most fortunate guy in the world because I went to Ken Squire High School and Barney Hall University. What little Ken didn't teach me about how to do this job, Barney did when I came to the Motor Racing Network. And Barney was nobody but who he was. He never tried to put on any airs. He never tried to make it any bigger than it was. He was like a comfortable pair of slippers that people around this country for decades, the minute they heard Barney Hall's voice, they knew the NASCAR race was on, and it was time to settle back and listen in. And he was, the fact that they named that award after Ken and Barney was just as perfect as it could have been because they were like peas and carrots in terms of making this sport grow back then.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. So Dave, talk about it. You guys, when you guys are calling those races, I mean, how do you guys, the dynamic that you guys have, it is bam, bam, bam. And I think that so many local race announcers, whether it be a PA guy, whatever it is, streaming, that they've listened to you guys to figure out how to call a race. I mean, how do you guys maneuver all of that? I mean, it's seamless the way you guys bounce around, from the guy up top to turn 1 to turn 2, 3, and 4.
It's not as difficult as it sounds, really. There are certain points on the racetrack where we know the guy that's talking now is going to shut up when they get there. So let's just run a lap. Striegel and Hayden are in the booth. They're going to call the drop of the green flag, and they're going to take the field approximately to the entrance of turn number 1, where they're going to shut up and I'm going to start talking. And I'm going to bring the field to the exit of turn 2, and I'm going to hand them off to Mike Bagley, who calls the backstretch, and then he's going to hand it off to whoever's working turn 3 and 4, and he's going to hand it off to Striegel and Hayden again. So if you know basically where they're going to stop and you need to start, and you've worked with people for a little while, like most of us on the network, we know each other inside out. I know pretty much when Jeff Striegel is going to shut his yap and expect me to start talking. And so based on that, it's not the rocket science that people think it is. It's just, your ears are as important as your mouth because you got to figure out when it's time to go. But once you figure that out, it's not too hard.
Yeah.
Dave, let's talk about the Hall of Fame. I would love to be a fly on the wall when you guys have your discussions about who's supposed to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. I would imagine the first couple, they're pretty easy. You're like, this guy's in, this guy's in, this guy's in. But when you guys used to have to pick 5 to try to get those last couple of guys in, I imagine the bench racing that went on in there and the storytelling and some of that has to be some of the best stuff that'll probably never go heard in the history of racing over there.
It's the greatest day of my year every year. Because, you get to go in there. Well, the best part is they bring us all in, and then they feed us lunch before we send us into the voting room. And everybody just kind of hangs out and reacquaints, and oh, look, there's Richard Petty. And, and not too many years ago, there's Junior Johnson, and there's David Pearson, and there's Cotton Owens. And, it was the greatest day of the year. And the first few years, it wasn't really very difficult. The first year of the NASCAR Hall of Fame, you got to put 5 people in. You're going to put in Bill France Jr. and Bill France Jr. And Jr. You're going to put in Richard Petty. There are certain people that are going to go in, and it wasn't that difficult. You had to put Earnhardt in the first class. So that leaves you with one whole spot to figure out. Now it's ridiculously difficult because we've gotten to the point now after a number of years where a lot of these people that are eligible, their statistics are roughly the same. They're very similar, and it's hard to pick one over another anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, let me ask you, the Godfather Dave Moody with us here on the Revved Up Sports Show from Texas. Dave, I think that NASCAR really has set, you were talking about the competition being, NFL, Major League Baseball, all of that. I really think that the last 2 years, NASCAR has really risen to teach these leagues how to do things. I mean, talk about that 2020 pandemic into 2021, we still have challenges happening, but man, NASCAR with great leadership, new leadership, has really risen above so many other major sports leagues.
You know, it really was very strange because when we went back to work after a few weeks off, we went back to work at Darlington Raceway, and there wasn't a fan in the place. It was, you could hear yourself breathing, which was very strange.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, there were a lot of people there because over there's the contingent from the National Football League. Mm-hmm. And they're watching and they're asking questions and they're soaking it up. How do you screen people before they get in? Do you let people interact or do you keep them in their own little bubble? And over here are the Major League Baseball people, and over here is the NHL, and over here is the NBA. And they were there for quite a few weeks, some of them, figuring out how NASCAR did it, how they kept everybody safe, and how they got the sport back rolling again and kept it rolling when nobody else could seem to do it.
Wow.
It's crazy to think about that.
Massive.
Dave, let's talk about this next-gen car in 2022. This seems like this is a lot of your old-school fans, if you will. They don't like where the number is going to be. They don't like the single lug nut. They don't like the look of the car. My theory on that is as long as the racing's good here in a couple of weeks when we get into the 2022 season, nobody's going to care about any of that stuff. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. There's a lot of new stuff on this car, a lot of really exciting stuff on this car, and 90% of the people just want to focus on the lug nut and the number placement, which are about the least important parts on the car. But yeah. I understand it. They're visible things for people to grasp onto. Here's the deal. People are going to talk about it right up until the cars hit the track, and they're going to talk about it a tiny little bit after the first race and an even tinier little bit after the second race. And then after the third race, they're going to forget that any of that stuff ever was any different, and it's going to be no topic of conversation. The next gen, to me, has the potential to save this sport because we're in a spot right now, guys, and you know it as well as I do, that it costs $30 million a year to compete for the NASCAR Cup Series Championship. $30 million a year. There aren't very many companies out there that can afford to spend $30 million and then another 25 or so to market the deal and activate the deal. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's just not sustainable. And if this new car can cut the cost of competition over the next 5 years by 50%, and a lot of really smart people are telling me that it can, it'll save this sport to the point where, back in the day, Matt Kenseth had the same sponsor every week. Yeah. Richard Petty had the same sponsor every week. Virtually nobody has the same sponsor every week anymore because nobody can afford it. If we get back to the days when one of these companies can come in for $10 million or $12 million, they'd be more than happy to play again. They just can't afford it right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. I mean, just the times we're dealing with. Dave, with your show, with SiriusXM Speedway, I mean, we have never done a live call-in show. I mean, we're going to do it in the off season, but I mean, you talk to the fans, but how crazy is it with the fans where, especially with the drivers, where they have to have some personality, then the drivers start to have some personality, and then people don't like that, and they kind of bitch, pardon the word. I mean, they bitch about that, with the drivers having some personality and all that. I really think that these drivers, especially when we lose Tony Stewart, Jeff Gordon, Jr., Jeff Gordon, all at one time, this new crop of drivers that we have, I really think that these guys are putting us on a nice path moving forward.
They've got great personalities. A lot of these young kids. I mean, Ryan Blaney has about the driest sense of humor on the planet. I mean, you could die of dehydration laughing at Ryan Blaney. and he's awesome. If people listen to him, he's awesome. Noah Gragson in the Xfinity Series. Ben Rhodes won the Truck Series championship the other night in Vegas and did his championship press conference drunk. He'd already had 5 beers. The kid weighs 102 pounds dripping wet. He was hammered, and it was so much fun because he was hilarious. And some of our fan base are committed to the fact that we don't want our drivers to be puppets. We don't want them to be politically correct. We don't want them to answer to corporate America. We want to hear what they really think, and we want the truth and the whole truth and the unvarnished truth.
Yeah.
Until they say something that they don't like, it's like, well, he should just shut the hell up.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. Either you want it or you don't.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I keep going back to that. It's like these guys are lively. I mean, let them be lively. I mean, let Kevin Harvick and Chase. I mean, let them do this. I mean, I think that's a good thing. Lastly, Dave, let me ask you. So the thing is, and Bobby touched on it earlier. Up north, I mean, and the funny thing is, even with short track racing, up north, it is huge, and it's getting really good out west as well, too, and folks really don't realize that, I think, from time to time. South, we're kind of sitting here struggling a little bit. How do we tie all this thing together? We all being short track folks, how do we get this thing tied together? I know money's a huge factor, but how do we get this thing to where we're all united somehow?
Boy, I got a ton of thoughts on that. The way to get people back in the grandstands again, we got to get rid of time trials where the fastest guy starts up front, leads every single lap, doesn't pass a single soul, and then gets out of the car acting like he's done something special. And the announcer says, don't forget, we're going to have another feature just like that here in another 20 minutes. No wonder people don't come. You got to get your attention on the front gate instead of the back gate.
Yeah.
You don't need 3 days of practice and 18 sets of tires to get ready for a 200-lap race. You need to start your race on time. Your intermission has to be 10 minutes maximum, not an hour and 10 minutes. It shouldn't take 45 minutes to clean up a single car spin with no impact and no debris. It just, don't waste people's time. Their time is valuable. Their money is valuable. Give them a reason to come back.
And the thing is, Dave, I talk about this all the time as a older short track guy. The attention span of a fan right now, it's not what it used to be. I mean, we old folks, we'll sit through anything, but new fans, they don't care to sit through all that crap.
NASCAR deals with this too. They have found, and they've done the studies, that after you get to about 3 hours or 3 hours and 10 minutes, people start wandering off. And whether they're race fans or not, they start wandering off. The attention span of people today is about like that of a goldfish. I mean, you think about how kids are raised. They've got these video games now where if somebody's head doesn't explode every 3 seconds, it's a boring game, and they pull it out and they put something else in, right? So, and here's NASCAR, where the whole idea is who can survive over a 4-hour and 15-minute test of man and machine. No wonder people are bored. I mean, golly, I'm the biggest race fan in the world. The Coke 600 puts me to sleep, and I apologize for saying it. Marcus Smith and Company, I love Charlotte Motor Speedway, but it's just, the days where every race had to be 500 miles are long gone. They've been running 300 or 301 at New Hampshire since day one, and I've never heard a fan walk out of that place saying they didn't get enough racing.
Yeah. Dave, so is that F1 model a good thing? I mean, I've gotten into F1 this year because the racing is good, and it's short. I mean, even the sprint races, all that. I think they're on to something right there.
I agree. I think the format is good. I'm not sure that the competition is always what it should be. I mean, we had a great one this past weekend. Why? Because they told that, they threw Lewis Hamilton out, made him start at the back, and actually worked for his win. Most weeks he starts first and he finishes first, and nobody comes close. But yes, to answer your question, the model is perfect because by the time 3 hours hits and people are starting to get busy, Formula One's been done for 45 minutes, and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Dave, thanks for the time tonight. We really appreciate it. I've got one more question before we cut you loose. And I hear you say this at the end of every Legends interview, but I've never heard anybody ask you the question. As you say, it's all, at the end of the day, we all go in the ground, we all go in that box. How do you want to be remembered to the race fans and the racing community?
Well, I would be happy. I was a race fan the day I arrived. Now, my uncle took me to my first race when I was 5 years old. I fell in love with it then. I feel the same way about it now. I was a fan the day I showed up. I've been very fortunate that fandom has taken me some places and allowed me to know some people that I never thought I would. But if the day I fall off my perch, they say of me, he was a race fan to the end, that's all I need. I'd be very happy with that.
Oh, my goodness.
Outstanding. Great answer.
Love that. I love that. You are the man, Mr. Moody. We are huge fans here in Texas, and thank you for taking the time to join us, man. And just you guys keep doing what you do. I mean, it's a great like we talk about with the other sports. You guys set a benchmark, and the other leagues really can't keep up with you guys.
Well, thank you, guys. You're very kind. I've enjoyed it. I'm happy to do it anytime you like, and tell Whipple he owes me a beer.
yeah, I wondered about that when he messaged me. I'm like, how did he pull that off? I'm not sure how he did that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen either way. I don't know how well you know Phil Whipple, but he's tighter than a coat of paint. He opens his wallet and moths fly out, so I'm not getting the beer. I already know that.
I love it. I love it. Dave, thanks so much for the time, sir. We will definitely keep in touch.
Take care, guys.
All right. There he is.
The one and only Godfather.
Monumental right there.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to listen to him because he really has. I mean, he's done it. I mean, he's just kind of risen up through the ranks right there. And he's old school, man. He is old school.
He's got the old soul, but I love the way, if you get a chance, I'm guilty of it now. I won't say this on the Saturday show, because it's a different market over there where we have the sports talking all day from morning to the afternoon drive home.
Sure.
I don't listen to that morning show as much as I do the SiriusXM NASCAR channel, and it's the same thing in the afternoon. I love Rod, and I love those guys over there. I love what those guys do. But I always listen to Dave Moody in the afternoon.
Well, I mean, you're tailored to be a race fan, and that is the beauty of what Channel 90 is that you can sit there and just listen to these guys and ladies. I mean, and it's such a great variation of the conversation that you get. I mean, because you start in the morning, and it's. I like the way that the programming is built right there, because you start off and then you build to Moody's show, and you get and what I love about him is that, like, he calls people off, and what I've always found so cool about him is we all have an opinion about something, whether it be good or bad. Mm-hmm. But what he does, like when somebody calls in and makes this blanket statement, he's like, okay, why?
I love it when he calls them out too.
Right, and I think that's the one thing that so many people, especially with the keyboard people these days, it's like it's a simple answer. Okay, why are you saying that? And that's where people start to stumble around and backpedal. And he, he is just he's the best of the best. I mean, he is the best.
And some of his callers, I God bless the man for putting up with some of the callers that call in. Like there was a couple today that I was like, well, all right, what's going to happen here? And he, I don't want to say he puts them in their place. He values their opinion. Like you said, he punches holes in the reasoning to try to get them to come up with a reason why they're saying what they're saying.
It's so funny because he will talk to people and they call in and they're like, boom, they're laying all this shit on the line, and here's what I think. And then he asks a few questions, and by the time that they're done, 2 minutes later, it's like they have a different opinion. Because he's talked them through it. I mean, he ought to be a therapist. I mean, he'd be a great therapist because he walks people backwards, and he really does. I mean, he puts them in his place, and I think that it's a craft that he has developed, and I aspire to be a Dave Moody. I mean, that's a guy where I would love to be Dave Moody because he is just so freaking awesome.
Yeah, he's so good at what he does, and he's been. The people that he learned from, we've talked about it before, Barney Hall's forgotten more than we'll ever learn, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with Ken Squire. Ken Squire's managed to forget more in a couple of notebook papers, ripping out pages than we'll ever get to do. But, the mentors that you got, it's the one thing like we talked about earlier about, with the entrepreneurship or everything else. Sometimes it's who you know, but you got to have the right people in the right place sometimes, and the right mentors that can take you to the next level. And a lot of times they'll take you places that you never thought you were going to go.
Well, Craig Way and Brad Sham actually have so those two, they go hand in hand. Voice of the Cowboys, voice of the Longhorns. They worked for many years at KRLD in Dallas, and Brad Sham actually gave Craig Way his way in. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Craig Way actually told me at one point, and again, I value this so much, is Brad Sham told him at one point, it doesn't matter how you get your break, it's what you do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one thing that it doesn't matter if it's a race announcer, it doesn't matter if it's whatever it is. I mean, it's so important, the relationships, and just with to have Ken Squire as a mentor, and I do. I mean, I am a total ripoff of Ken Squire. If you listen to when I call races, I'm doing stuff that he did and stuff that these guys do, and it's like there's a lot of people that have mentioned to me. It's like, oh man, you're pretty good. I'm like, no, I'm not. I've listened to the right people, and he's the best example right there. And he's so humble because he's in a great spot, and what an honor right there to talk to him.
Yeah, it was a great interview. We appreciate the time from Dave Movie, and we also, like we said, we appreciate our buddy Phil Whipple.
Oh my God, Phil Whipple.
Phil's a good guy. He sent me a text the other day that says, "Hey," he says, "I got you guys Dave Moody," and I replied back. I was like, "Wait, like Dave Moody, like NASCAR Dave Moody." He says, "Yeah, who else would I get?" I was like, well, how the hell did you do that? He's like, well, he owes me. I knew him forever, and I got him to do a favor or whatever. Like you said, take advantage of it, right? Whenever it happens.
And that's a good example right there. I mean, we would not have gotten Dave Moody without Phil Whipple.
Yeah,
and that's a matter of aligning yourself with good people, and that's all across racing. I mean, I'll tell all the young racers right now. I mean, like Moody was talking about. I mean, you have to get yourself. I mean, I know money is so important right now, but get yourself in line with really good people, because you just never know. I mean, you just never know who. And I think a lot of that does go back to being a good person, being a little bit kind, and being humble. And I think that that can go a long way. And I think young racers these days need to really take that into consideration. Where, it's one thing if you're really good, but just be good.
Yeah,
just be okay.
Just remember what is it? The toes you step on today is going to be connected to the ass you have to kiss tomorrow.
And never burn a fucking bridge. I mean, that is the one thing that I can tell people. It doesn't matter in a business sense, in the racing sense, or anything. I mean, I know with the broadcasting stuff, we've done stuff. We've been through so many different outlets before we got to this, and we've been affiliated with different whatever. But I can promise you, because people have asked me, hey, what about Chuck Licata or what about whoever? We're all on good terms because we didn't burn bridges.
Didn't burn bridges at all. Try not to.
No, absolutely.
Ruffled a few feathers, maybe.
Well,
but that's different.
Yeah, and I mean that's the same thing like with the racetracks. I mean, it's and that's where racetracks need to go hand in hand and work together, and don't step all over each other, and don't piss each other off, because that's a great example right there with what Moody was talking about, to where he went, he learned, and look at him, he's the best. I mean, he's the best of the best.
It's really good. And if you're wondering how I got the Godfather moniker, if you just do a little Google search, which we were both guilty of this afternoon, doing some Google searching of Dave Moody to make sure we had all the right stuff on him. I didn't even get a chance to ask him about those Legends interviews that he does. I mean, those are great. I feel like
I'd love to do that.
I try to make our Legends interviews, when we interview our local legends here, I try to model the questions.
That's where the hell I got that concept from. I was sitting around thinking one day, because I was listening to him talk to somebody, and I'm like,
it's a good idea.
That might be pretty cool.
And then when the COVID hit, we didn't have a choice to keep the show going. We started talking to all these local legends and stuff.
Yeah, no, good stuff.
Speaking of that, let us know who you want to talk to next.
Yeah, who's next? I mean, we're into the winter, into the off season, so we have time. I mean, there's things to talk about. So we'd love to get the legends fired up once again. I actually have a couple in mind that we will get going, but and I really like we didn't really get as in depth as much as I wanted to, but Dave Moody is a great example to where you have to combine short track and NASCAR racing, whether it be the Cup Series or the trucks, or, I mean, latch on to something. I mean, just latch on to something. I mean, find something that you like. And he said it. He said it, because I've been guilty as anyone else of saying that this next gen car is going to screw everything up. You heard him. It's going to save NASCAR.
It's going to save, and I'm guilty of the number too. Right, like I don't like where they're putting the number, but I understand why they're doing it. But it's like I said, what I've realized about it is, as long as the racing good, nobody's going to give a damn about any of that. Nobody's going to care about the one lug nut. Nobody's going to care about where the number's at. Nobody's going to care about what this car looks like. As long as the good racing, it's kind of like a winning football team or a winning sports team solves a lot of problems. good racing out of these cars. Like if they go out and put the clashes, the Busch Clash at the Coliseum is going to be a shit show.
But
it's going to be a train wreck. But it's going to put eyeballs on this sport that we haven't seen in a long, long time.
You are going to have people that are going to be at that event because it's the week before the Super Bowl that's going to happen right down the road, and you are going to have such mainstream coverage because it's that or media day. And the format, I mean, let's talk about the format. I mean, the format is very short track. For all the folks that don't like what NASCAR is doing, go find that format. You're going to
short track central right there.
You're going to have single car qualifying on, what is it, Saturday? Single car qualifying on Saturday. You're going to sit there and go through all of that. Then you're going to go through heat races, top 4 advance. I have it somewhere. Then you're going to go into B mains and all this other stuff. For everyone that doesn't like NASCAR racing, I mean, be proud. Be proud because what NASCAR did is they went and they took, for example, this weekend at Texana, they went and took that format and totally robbed it and are going to use it at the Coliseum.
The Clash at the Coliseum, that one's going to be great. In this new car, I think that, like he said, knowing that it's saving people well. Initially, anytime somebody said they want to save you money in the long run, it costs you money in the beginning.
Yeah.
But, Moody's talked about it before where he said most of these chassis and everything, they were all